Where can I just right click to request group invite?
I already typed one in chat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm not ready yet. I'll need to summon back. I have to change my spec.
Oh. Is this the part where I ask if anyone has wants to buy some potions off of me?
Yes. And I equip my neural silencer.
Okay.
That's a good plan.
That's
the
always
good
a
news,
good plan.
I'll be providing the feast.
Excellent.
Nice.
This is one where we build it together, though, right? Like you put the pot down, and then we all add ingredients.
No,
Yeah,
see,
actually.
actually, what's happening is we made these characters for his campaign, and now we're just gonna sit through it as he plays them all, and we get to experience his campaign and storytelling.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's like a weird XCOM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this was. Oh, cool. It's like 5 o'clock. It's time to get ready. Oh crap! I haven't cooked dinner yet. Tacos done.
Oh shit! I had tacos for dinner too.
Heck yeah.
Shrimp
Which
tacos.
reminds me, I need to go clean up my mess real quick. BRB.
You have 2 minutes.
Go. I can do it.
You think that's dishes or the mess in his drawers?
Oh dear. That's probably for a couple hours from now break.
Shrimp tacos. That was my choice.
Oh yes.
Tacos.
Heck
Can't
yeah,
do it.
Little bourbon glaze on top of the shrimp.
Can't do seafood tacos.
Pretty good. Little spicy coleslaw.
Well, yeah, okay.
How do you make your character your icon?
What the fuck is this text message?
I changed my profile photo on my Roll20 account, and that's how I was able to show that photo.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm already doing that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm an absolute unit, so we're okay.
I straight up don't know how I did it.
It's fine. I got everybody's name. That works just fine. And then there's one fat Pikachu.
Yeah. First off, absolute unit. All right. Hold on.
Second of all,
That's a finely tuned athletic machine you're talking about there. All right.
Uh-huh.
You're just trying to bash one of my players. He's a finely tuned athletic machine.
That's like an original press release Pikachu when he was perfectly spherical.
Yeah.
There was no chin.
I don't know. I don't think Fabarius's character is named Fabarius.
That's true.
Yeah, you can change that just in the settings in here, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the cogwheel and you hit personalization and display, the display name window will pop up and you can enter in the name that you want.
X, I'll be very disappointed if you don't put in absolute unit.
Prepare to be disappointed.
Oh, that's everything I wanted it to be. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Who is this Mao you speak of? Oh, it's not Mao, it's MAU.
The absolute unit. Already getting titles.
Okay, guys. So it's 6 o'clock.
Woo!
Yay, we did it. We're here.
Let's do it.
Yep. So, as hinted at in previous documentation and posts, we're going to start with a bit of a session 0. It's not going to be the whole 3 hours because that's a lot of not making progress. But you guys definitely received in the mail a package a few weeks ago. That package had 3 things in it. The package had a small book. It had a letter, which you all definitely read.
Definitely.
Yep.
And it had a small piece of coffee cake.
Which was
And so,
delicious.
well,
It was rock hard.
You couldn't
Yeah.
eat it.
And that is how Foob lost his teeth.
yep. Everybody who tried to take a nibble of that coffee cake found out pretty quickly that it was preserved in stasis.
You could lick it.
You probably could lick it, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I knew it was tasty.
But you were unable to get anywhere as far as actually eating it until approximately 2 minutes ago, where there was a brief shimmer and that piece of coffee cake turned into a normal soft piece of coffee cake.
Ooh.
Eat some of that coffee cake.
It's a little hazy at first, but as you start biting into it, it's sort of like you're tuning a radio, and a voice starts fading in and out from your ears. The technology is a little weird, and the voice on the other end definitely seems like he's never done this before, because there's probably a good 2 or 3 minutes of hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
This is amazing.
It doesn't actually matter if you say anything. You could say yes. You could say yes. I hear you. Who is this? What have you done? It doesn't matter what you say. He just keeps saying hello for about 5 minutes or so.
Oh, perfect.
It's like when you're exploring the room, but you haven't interacted with the radio yet, and you just get the same audio loop over and over again.
I love
Yeah,
it.
sorta. So finally, someone says something, or there's a shift, and like somebody knocks over something enough that in the middle of one of those hellos, he says, okay, good, I can hear you. Oh, I was afraid it was just me. And that means one of you ate one of my snacks. Oh, how exciting. This is truly new territory. Oh, I'm almost too excited. Well, introductions first, yes. I am Kraven Tantos, the Culinarian Guild cartographer and recently published author. And I have to say, if you're eating this coffee cake, then you are probably one of my astute readers. And that's one of the many reasons I'm going to say thank you over the next bit. So, thank you for reading my book. Goodness. At this rate, I may be publishing 3 or 4 more of those, and oh, I'm excited for that. I have plenty of ideas. But forgive me, that's not a conversation for right now. The conversation for right now... Oh, it is actually one of my books, isn't it? Well, shoot.
Oh boy.
Oh, right. The topic of this conversation is I want to get to know all of you. There should be 6 of you, and if I've done this right, I'm hopeful that this enchantment will last long enough for me to get to know each and every one of you. The hope being that when we next speak, when we next interact, we'll be able to share stories. We'll be able to trade what knowledge we have. In one day, I may be able to put all of that information together into a compendium, an anthology of your adventures. Now, I will say that you were all picked at random from people that the guild could confirm had read the book, and I don't have the slightest how they decided that, but I am confident that if you've read my books, you are the sort that enjoy adventure and excitement, seeing new places, meeting new people. Well, I want to get some of your experiences. So, before I go any further, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. No names. I'm going to start with that. No names. This is very important. But I will be giving you all creative code names. I hope you're excited about that, because I've thought about them for quite some time. You'll see in front of you, you each should have the book that came with your package. One at a time, I'm going to activate those books for you. Now, they do a few things, and the first you're going to see is they're going to shine brightly, and that tells you that they're working. From that point on, when you write in the book, the book's writing will appear before me in my book. Now, I'm not going to keep my book open all the time. That's ridiculous. I have duties as a cartographer and as an adventurer, I guess. So, it may take a little bit for me to get back to you, but know that I will always check this book regularly and will be able to give you helpful advice if you need to know something about a locale you find yourself in, if you are preparing to meet someone of great import. Whatever it is your adventures plan on taking you to, I'm happy to assist however I can, given the reasonable time delays. So, let's see. Who am I going to activate first? Yes. I think I'm going to activate Claw. The book in front of John begins to glow. And he says, Claw. Yes, Claw first. So, give it just a second for the enchantment to take its effect, and then, at your leisure, please introduce yourselves. Tell us where you are from, where you are now, where you plan on going, and a bit about some of the adventures that you may have been on. Like I said, I'm trying to get enough information for an anthology, so at your leisure,
To
Claw.
start by eating the coffee cake.
I'm going to assume that everybody's eating the coffee cake. That would be a problem.
Oh no!
I might be allergic to the coffee cake.
Without revealing too much, you can tell by my. Oh, am I seeing you, or is it strictly by writing?
It's not even writing, it's just auditory. There's a voice in your head.
Interesting. I don't care to spend much time talking about myself or my deeds. Those curious enough to investigate could find some details. What I'm more interested in is my future. I am currently set on a path to eliminate the human cost of conflict with the monsters of plenty. Too long have we lost good men and women trying to defend our people against this monstrous threat. I have devised a mechanical solution so that we no longer need risk life and limb, family and friend to do battle with these great beasts that threaten our lives daily. Everything I do is now in furtherance of that goal. I've made some allies, some friends, and unfortunately some enemies in pursuit of that goal. My crowning achievement thus far is my stalwart companion and steel defender called Glitch, a nearly sentient robotic panther that follows alongside of me, obeying my commands and helping me protect the life of the citizens of the archipelago of Plenty.
Fascinating. What an interesting goal to eliminate conflict. I must say, we live in a world that is full of it, whether we want it or not. Monster versus sentient creature, sometimes sentient creature versus sentient creature. That is noble of you. And allow me to say, the good reason, and I'm not going to be using names, so that you may act with some anonymity in case there's some that don't wish to be found. I won't ask where you're from, but I may at least ask, well, where are you now?
I'm currently sitting at a workbench.
Well, that's reasonable.
I have a workshop just outside an old Satiri Guard outpost. That's all I care to share.
I see. Well, I do hope that at one point we get to meet one another. And in the meantime, as mentioned, I'm always here to help.
How is this possible?
This
How we're talking with one another. This is fascinating.
These communiques are some of the latest in culinary and guild research. The idea being that if we can share meals, we can share conversation, and we shouldn't need to do those all at the same place. An interesting idea well, it was actually straight from the council, from Councillor Messelier. Goodness knows how she did it.
Draw its power from.
You know, I will be honest with you. I couldn't say. I'm an administrator. I don't do most of the research myself, so when I came to the guild and said I have a problem, I need to speak with people who are far away from here, and they said, well, I think I have a cake for that.
Being a skilled tinkerer and craftsman, I would love to take it apart, but however, I have no skills in bakery. Perhaps I shan't risk it this time.
That is for the best. Well, thank you, Claw. I do hope to hear more from you later. Next, yes, let's activate codename Breath. Sav, your tome begins to glow for a moment, and as it fades, floor is yours.
Well, nothing I haven't seen before, but still pretty cool. I guess I'll start off with I'm on the younger side. The world is kind of my oyster at this point.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. It is good to get some youth involved as well. There's only so much of the world left for stuffy old researchers like myself. So,
Well,
where have you been? Where are you going? Tell us a bit about yourself, Breath.
So, I come from a long line of I guess hero fighters. My mother and father were part of a guild where they um, went around and hunted down uh, beings that were harming different settlements and different villages around Plenty, and they decided to settle down, and um, they settled in the coastlands that I'm forgetting of right now.
Oh,
It's been
that's
a while since
reasonable.
I've thought about my home, but I hope to write back to my mom at some point. My dad's currently venturing in Plenty, but I've yet to see him due to being gone for several months after a incident with a local noble that decided that it was a good idea to imprison different life, Tabaxi, Kenku, you name it.
Mm-hmm. All right. am starting to see where the hero line comes from. Fascinating. Well, in that case, I hope to hear more about you and your bloodline as we go. Where can I find you? Well, not that I'm going to find you, but where could I have found you if I were to meet with you?
Currently, I'm sitting in a park, just I guess kind of towards the middle of town. I think it's very foresty.
I see. Well, Breath, I look forward to hearing from you more. As mentioned previously, please feel free to write with any questions, and I will get to them as quick as I can.
Thank you.
I'm going to activate codename Wing. Feisty. Your book begins to glow for just a second, and the floor is yours.
I don't know what to say.
Is it because you can't speak?
Ooh, that'd be a tough one.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I can speak, but I also make fun noises too. I make a trill of curiosity. Um, I I don't know. I don't really like to talk about my past. But right now I am working in a restaurant in the middle of Port Maria, called the Golem's Rest, and I serve a god that I know nothing about.
Well, I'm going to focus on the first part for a bit, because that one is much more enjoyable to talk about. I've been to the Golem's Rest a few times. That means you must serve Mr. Rumbottom, yes?
That's correct.
Wonderful, wonderful. A lovely establishment. Very pleasant, welcoming.
Yeah.
There are definitely plenty of restaurants in Porto Maria where you have to get reservations and you have to be wearing the appropriate attire, or in some cases, wearing attire, and sometimes that's a bit stuffy. I do enjoy a place like the Golem's Rest.
Runbottom took me in when my life was at its lowest point. And I have been doing my best to help him and his family out.
That sounds like Rumbottom. At least from what I've spoken with him about. I should ask, for the sake of my anthology, what god are you serving that you know nothing of?
I believe their name is Kugel. Did I get that pronunciation right, Zell?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've heard nothing of such a god, but we do have a lot of them. Almost too many. Well, I wish I could be of more help on that, but I suppose you could always check the Temple of a Thousand Gods and see if they have something on their roster.
Maybe someday I'll be near there, but I don't know when that'll happen.
Who knows? But I will hope the best for you, and I'll see if there's anything here in the Culinarians Guild archives for you, at least.
Thank you.
Let's see. So thank you, Wing. I'm going to activate Spittle. Yes. Foob. Your book begins to glow. Says, I believe it is your turn, if you wouldn't mind. Tell us a bit about yourself, Spittle.
I start to think my thoughts at you all. Does that translate?
Nope.
So basically, you'll hear nothing for like a good 2 minutes.
After like 15 seconds or so, Tontos will say, Spittle, are you there?
I'm here. I'm currently working out. And so just like deep breaths, heavy breathing as he's talking to you all.
Ah,
I was wondering if this worked with my mind or if I needed to speak.
I'm afraid you do need to speak, yes. I am in my office right now, where thankfully none of my colleagues can see me talking to myself.
I'm from the wilds around Satir. I grew up there, and now I work for the guard. That is all I wish to say.
Well, that's all right. Hopefully I can... Ooh, that's a big old cut on my thumb. Sorry to break character for a second. I'm bleeding.
No worries.
Oh.
He got a paper cut. Oh boy.
Good.
Quick, who has the healing potion?
He pauses for a second, says, well, That's all right. There's plenty of adventure to be found with the Satiri Guard. I don't see why you wouldn't have plenty of tales to tell given just a bit more time. Though I do hope to hear from you about those tales, and of course I will help however I can. Let's see. Yes, I suppose next on the list will be host. Could I hear from host? X? Whenever you're ready.
Everyone hears a slight growl and snarl, and a little bit of tinge of pain. Apologies. Your coffee cake has awoken a darker side of me that I do not have full control over.
Oh, I apologize for that. Some people do not like streusel. But it was that or poppy seed, and I know nobody likes that.
I
What?
agree. I myself, am a former soldier of even call that has been taken over by an affliction that happened while out a on an adventure.
Oh, an illness. How unfortunate.
I now just long to have memories of a life of prior living that was filled with family, friends, and feasts.
Hmm.
I am now here in Porto Maria, just north in the mountains, gathering and hope to find a worthy hunt to partake in.
Well, I have no doubt that we can find you plenty of those. That being said, I cannot assist too much with guild membership. That is to the Tournament of Steel. But I will at least keep an eye out for you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your forthcomingness. Let's see. That leaves... Yes. Fringe, if you wouldn't mind. And Meg, your book glows for a moment.
Fringe, what a fascinating name. I'll answer your question if you answer one of mine.
Please, I have all the time in the world, and was planning on answering questions anyway.
How many high elves does it take to change a light bulb?
I have seen a few good elves fight vigorously with an oil lantern once. But I'm afraid I can't answer that question right now.
Just one! He holds the bulb and the universe revolves around him.
Oh dear.
Love it.
How do I
Obviously,
turn this thing off?
I'm not a typical Vidalcan. I happen to be sorry for the loud noise, and if I get distracted by other conversations in a tavern right now, right in the heart of Nazma. But I do travel around quite a bit, and I am looking forward to making a trip to Porto Maria soon. I don't know where I'm from, so if you find out, please let me know. That would be fabulous. And I happen to spend a lot of time getting myself in and out of trouble. It seems to be my specialty. So, if I can ever interest you in an inappropriate joke, please let me know.
I will keep that in mind. Inappropriate joke was what a few of the administrators called my first book, too.
Oh, we'll get along fabulously then. Please do tell,
Absolutely.
will we have the opportunity to meet them in person? I'm pretty sure they won't like me.
Well, I certainly hope not. I'm happy to meet with you, but... Goodness. Every once in a while you meet one that is just involved in their own world. Yes?
It's a little fun among friends.
Absolutely. Well, Fringe, I appreciate that. And like I've mentioned to everyone, I am here to help, which brings me to the next portion of this conversation, where I answer questions. If there is anything that you wish to know about the world, I guarantee that I know it, can lie about it, or can do research on it. So by all means, if there's anything that's missing, anything from the world of plenty, please feel free. Or not, and we'll have this enchantment fade away rather quickly.
Is there anything to do in Porta Maria besides go to the pier?
Well, if you're in Porta Maria, by far the best thing to do is eat.
How about
It goes without saying that we pride ourselves on that more than just about anything else. But outside that, we do our best to keep up most of the important civics that you would need, including personal entertainment. There's plenty of parks to go to. We pride ourselves on being... No, this is going to sound a little snootier than I want, and I apologize for that. We pride ourselves with rather in tune with nature, so keeping as many natural features out as possible is important, preserving trees and the like. That being said, I will admit there is reason that I wanted to travel so much, is every once in a while it gets a little stale.
plug our own restaurant. Golem's Rest has the best noodle bowl this side of Porta Maria.
Be careful who you say that to. I definitely know of at least one counselor that would argue otherwise.
He's a jerk.
Oh, I like you.
My father did mention these noodles and other cuisines from Porta Maria, but I've never actually been here before. It's my first time.
Well then, assuming that you're safe and sheltered and well fed and all that, then I would recommend that you explore a bit. If anything, I should say, the most exciting thing coming up is the Tournament of Steel is only a few months out. And goodness, there is no better time to be in Porta Maria than during the Tournament of Steel. So I hope that you get to enjoy a bit of that. See some of the entertainment, watch some of the matches, enjoy some of the cuisine. Please. I hope you get to, at least.
I look forward to it.
Is there anything else I can assist any of you with? This is a rare opportunity where I get to actually speak with you, hear your questions through your own voice.
All right, I got another question for you.
Please.
What do you call a good-looking woman on the Realm Coast?
Well, considering how far away you are, I might say you.
A tourist!
Also good.
Oh.
Thank you, I'm here all night.
Well, what a wonderful opportunity to thank you all very much for this experiment. This is something that we're trying that is rather unheard of. The journal enchantments are provided primarily by the Hunters Guild, the materials they brought in. So we're working with materials that we don't necessarily know how effective they're going to be. So thank you very much for your assistance, and I hope that we get the opportunity to converse more. Maybe one day in person even. So, with that, I'm going to end this enchantment. I can already feel it fading. Much like I'm already craving a second slice of cake.
Goodbye, voice in my head.
I wish you all the best in your journeys.
Will the communicate return to its stasis form? Or will I have to worry about preserving this for further communication?
The enchantment is scheduled to expire. I'm afraid that in the next few minutes it will turn into just traditional cake and probably catch up on how stale it's getting. So, thank you all very much. Safety and satiation to you all. And with that, the enchantment fades, and you are left to your own thoughts again. But now you have a sweet book, bound in some very impressive leather, and inscribed with, well, now that you look at it, a sigil that at least vaguely represents those code names. Best tuck that book away for when you need it, though.
The most racist code name.
Yeah.
Got him.
So, that event happened a few weeks ago, probably about a month ago. And outside possibly answering questions in the journal, that was pretty much the end of it. So we're going to fast forward a little bit at the end of our wonderful Session 0 content and get to the heart of everyone finding themselves in Porto Maria. Now, Porto Maria is, under normal circumstances, a pretty lively city. It's built itself up on excitement, right? Every 5 years, it has this magnificent tournament that inspires all of these tourisms. Jai, you're free to speak. What's up?
I didn't want to interrupt if you were in the middle of a good roll.
No, go for it.
Can we talk like a nuts and bolts character creation question?
Oh, sure, by all means.
I remember like in the very beginnings of our talking about who was going to play what and character creation, you had mentioned at one point an enticement to play a non-elf character.
Yeah.
Does said enticement still exist?
Yes, that was the +1 to an even stat for anybody who is not an elf.
Is there any restriction to that?
In hindsight, I thought to myself, I probably should have included human, but then a bunch of people made humans, and I was like, I'm not going to take that away. At least they're not elves.
Whoops.
So, no, the restriction is you get +1 to any of your stats that are currently even, so long as you are not an elf.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sweet.
Before we get too far into world building, does anybody else have any other questions? I'm happy to answer them in or out of character.
Yeah, how do you do the emotes over in the chat?
It should be
/E.
Ooh,
Yep.
Perfect.
And then space?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, /E space and then describe whatever you want to.
Yeah, I was just looking. There's all sorts of interesting text commands. I can emote on behalf of a character that doesn't even exist if I want to.
Nice.
Probably won't do that too often, but I was like, oh, that's a nice functionality to have. Maybe there's someone hiding in the shadows that's doing something. Yeah.
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh, I have so many jokes. I have so many jokes prepped and ready to go.
I'm so
Nice.
excited for
Can't
all
wait.
of your jokes.
Just wait until we're in person and we're in combat, because my character makes jokes, especially when humor is inappropriate.
I wish I had made a bard, because that would have been even better.
Oh boy.
Oh, I have songs also. Yes, I have songs prepped.
Oh, good.
Oh, my
I better
fucking God.
I better learn how to control my affliction before too long, or we're gonna have a friendly fire incident.
It is possible.
I
We're
just
gonna
hope
have a
most of
bad
those
time.
songs are in public domain.
Oh no, they're ones that I've written myself. It should be fine.
Also good. Proprietary works.
Yep.
Also, remember, as long as it's less than 10 seconds, it's fair use.
That is not true. You just said that to a copyright attorney, and he shrunk a little.
You know what? That means my theater teacher in high school lied to me.
I mean, that's
What a
Probably.
loser.
all right.
I mean,
Back
he
on
probably
track.
didn't lie to you. He may have legitimately believed that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
He
He's just
passed
not
on
an
false
attorney.
information.
Yeah, we lie to children all the time. It's fine. So, any other questions before we get going? That's the awkward silence I like to hear.
Yeah.
Got
I'm good.
out of my system.
I'd have so much fun with emotes as a Kenku. It's going to be great.
I hope so.
Squawk.
Make any sound.
Hey,
So-
you're gonna hear a lot of snarls from me. Don't feel bad.
All right. So, for everybody's own personal reason, whether it's because you've been here for a while or because a random business transaction or adventure has brought you here, you're finding yourselves in Porto Maria. And Porto Maria is abnormally busy. The tournament, as mentioned by Tontos, is not for several months, so it seems a little early for preparations to be underway. But it's lively. In fact, the people seem like they can't stop moving, can't stop talking, can't stop it. That being said, there's also practically no ships in harbor, so where is everybody? And then you all find those notes that were linked to you previously. The pamphlet saying, we're going to have a meeting in Allers Hall at sunset tonight. So, for all of your own individual reasons, you will find yourselves making your way to the hall, or else your role in this campaign is greatly diminished.
Would both Cardamom and I be going together, I would assume?
No.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is actually that Cardamom seems like he has other things he's working on.
Okay.
You know what? I'm not even going to make you make a roll for it because this is a silly thing to have as the first roll of the campaign. He's been receiving missives from the Culinarians Guild for the last couple days. Letters, occasionally packages, but mostly it's a lot of documents. And so the Golem's Rest has been way busier than it has any right to be, considering there isn't actually a lot of business incoming yet.
Do we have that physical invitation? If memory serves, it was, I think, addressed or intended to be for the residents of Porto Maria, which I am not, but I don't imagine someone's going to stop me, but...
Oh, absolutely not. And they aren't even invitations in that, like, there was one personally mailed to each resident of Porto Maria. I'm serious. There were just big old stacks of them at every tavern and inn. The town criers were practically throwing them at people like they were religious pamphlets.
Nice.
If you were in the town, you probably got hit with one at some point. So it is very easy for you to get a copy of that.
I use them as kindling to keep me warm by my fire.
Well, as long as you kept one, there were plenty to go around. So, making your way to Allers Hall, there are at least a decent number of people that are also making their way into the hall. A lot of adventuring type, a lot of people that look like they are either in the Hunters Guild or they're planning on it one day. And as you walk in, there is a very brief administrative proceeding where There are a number of desks lined up, and they don't ask for much from you, just ask you for a name and a profession. You are free to lie about the profession, I don't know, but probably best that you get the name right at least. And they even tell you that they say we don't really care what you do, just so long as you're not a teacher and getting ready to get into something pretty dangerous. But the name is important. We really need to know your name. So after that, though, you are each individually instructed, please, to head up into the central meeting hall. And the guild hall, the meeting hall is directly behind where you are standing. There's a large set of deep oaken stairs, goes up probably a good floor or two before opening up into 20-foot doors and an enormous hall. And I'm going to do my first scene transition. Here we go.
Go fuck it up.
We did
Whoa.
it.
Nice.
All right.
Whoa!
I'm a GM. I made something happen. So, thank you, by the way. I see the people that are posting their names and occupations. That is both cool and helpful. So, the crowd inside the meeting hall is just overflowing with energy. The people there are apprehensive, curious, excited. It's kind of difficult to pin down one emotion because there's not a lot of information going on. You can see in front of you several members of the Culinarians Guild are lining the outside of the halls, but definitely the most notable are the 7 counselors that are standing at lecterns on the far edge of the hall. You also see the Guildmaster Rare, who is deeply engaged with possibly the only person that stands out as probably not in the Culinarians Guild properly. It's definitely a one-sided conversation. She is not saying a word. She is practically staring at him as if he is making a fool of himself, but he is talking as if this is the most important conversation in the world and that he is loving it. Finally, stepping in front of the crowd is none of the counselors, but instead a man mid-50s with way too big of a token.
He's a very big personality.
No. He takes a deep breath and approaches the podium. Definitely Corbin Birdson. And when he gets to the podium, he gives it a pretty firm couple taps to try and get everybody's attention before starting to address the crowd with, "Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for coming to... Can I get your attention, please? Hey, anyone!" The mayor gets no response from the crowd. He throws up his arms and just, "Fine, whatever. Forget it. Here's Guildmaster Rare. What? Why do I even come here?" When he says that, the entire crowd switches from milling about, from talking to themselves to, "Wait, Guildmaster Rare? Rare? It's time?" And before Guildmaster Rare can even take the lectern, the crowd is cheering for him. He takes it in. He's definitely enjoying his spot in the limelight. He waves to the crowd pretty profusely and maybe takes an extra second or two before finally gesturing for everybody to calm themselves down. As he starts gesturing, the crowd is silent almost immediately. He's definitely still smiling, even though the tone of his voice is a little more grave than maybe you have ever heard him otherwise. He says, "My dear friends, fellow culinarians, guests, and heartfelt volunteers, I appreciate you coming for this most urgent cause. I promised in the notice that I had sent out that I would brief everyone here on the fate of the city-state of Nazma. I expect that by now, many of you have heard the rumor from our guests of the host of Telemar," and he takes a second to gesture to the woman in green, "that a calamity has befallen our Nazman brothers and sisters. I can confirm. The city-state of Nazma has been destroyed." Rare waits for a second and properly calls that the entire crowd is going to start murmuring with confusion and fear. A city-state being destroyed doesn't just happen. These city-states have been around for centuries. He lets that pass for a few seconds before again raising his hands to get the crowd under control. And they get themselves under control pretty dutifully. "If I may, I will stand aside. I believe the Herald Mora will wish to speak for her patron." He once again gestures to the woman standing before him with her emerald green robes, and she nods to him, still never actually talking to him, but instead walks up to the lectern and removes her hood. Around her face, you could see she is very heavily scarred and has no hair to show, instead having what looks like a 3-inch wide scar going over her scalp. She hasn't even said a word, but she looks like she has given speeches like this a dozen times and is already bored of it. "Citizens of Porta Maria, I am the voice of Telemar, god of glorious victories. He comes, his mighty axe stained with the foul ichor of the infernal plains and their denizens. For on his way to this realm, he encountered a mighty horde, the Calathrax Dominarium, set to claim this plane as their own. Telemar, seeking combats worthy of his might and legend, roused his mighty host and cut down the Dominion before their infernal touch could stain this pure world. Now, Telemar requests revelry. He first came to Nazma, asking for celebration of his victory and the recognition of his deeds, that his legacy may grow further. The Nazmans could not oblige of his victory, and in his displeasure, Telemar left no building standing. Telemar now comes to Porta Maria, once again requesting revelry and acknowledgement of his deeds. His arrival date is at my call as his herald, and I shall only call him at your request when you believe yourselves ready to receive my lord. Should you appease him, Telemar's favor will be a boon for this plain and this city, his might as a welcome guardian against the forces of other planes. But should you fail, your fate will be that of your fellows in Nazma. She pauses for just a second before returning her hood, taking her place back far from the lectern. The hall is silent. Until Rare steps forward again. Then everybody starts to get excited. The energy in the room just picks up as he takes the stage. This brings us to what we can do for ourselves, my friends. You heard the herald. Telemar is coming to Porta Maria. We could stall for a bit, but I would not leave this looming over another council's head. So before we can have our next Tournament of Steel, we will host him in our halls. And I should say that I think this is the perfect opportunity. None in all of Plenty are better prepared for revelry than Porta Maria. Before I go any further, please, my friends, take heart. Know that the fate of Nazma is in my mind as well, and that I will not let their suffering go unanswered. Already, we have dispatched a battalion of culinarians, hunters, and administrators to take Nazma, to assess the damage, to offer supplies and assistance to the people now displaced, and to retrieve any refugees that need a place to rest their head. I have also sent dispatches out to Satir, Rilem, and Evencall, asking for their assistance in managing the refugees and survivors. Trust me that I will not leave them to suffer. We will do everything we can to assist, as they would do with us. I'm going to interrupt myself to ask, Try, are you saying that, or is your character saying that out loud?
Yeah, more just musing to either anybody within earshot, really. Like, if a herald just showed up out of nowhere and told me that a whole city had been destroyed and I hadn't heard of it from anyone else, I'd like third-party confirmation. Just how my mind works.
I'm imagining that you are, especially after your previous description, probably muddled pretty well into the center of the crowd. There's no guild personnel that are anywhere close enough to hear that question, but there is a nice half-elven lad that's not too far away, and he hears your questions. Well, I can't say for certain, but I heard that we've already started hearing from refugees that are on their way back. They should be arriving within a few days, and hopefully we have the space for them. Unfortunately, nobody else is able to or willing to peel themselves away from Rare to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just gonna lean on Glitch, and I can't fathom the loss of life.
Rare livens up even further. Now, let me ask you, people of Porta Maria, if we were to approach the trouble of needing to provide revelry, what would be our strongest skill? What would be the heart of Porta Maria that we have to show to this deity? And the answer is, of course, we will have a banquet. But more than that, a competition! Each of the culinarians still in Porta Maria will be tasked with creating a single dish for what I am calling the God's Feast. A dish so reflective of Plenty and its people as to show the deity the entirety of our nations with each bite, to invoke the spirit of resistance and camaraderie that exists in and unites our people, and of course, that tastes so good no deity could ever wish harm upon us. So monumental is this task that our guild cannot handle this alone. Though they are certainly the brightest minds and sharpest knives, the culinarians are still only one person each, and these recipes will surely require sous chefs to support them. And that is where you, the most courageous and duty-bound of us, will play your parts, as sous chefs to the culinarians preparing their masterful creations. Each of you has been split into teams of 4 by our administrators. Once you have been assigned to your team, you will need to find a guild-sponsored culinarian who is willing to take you on as sous chefs. And together, You will work to create that masterful dish that very well could be the salvation of all of Porto Maria. So now, our administrators will call out your names to arrange the teams. As you hear your names, please meet with them to gather as much knowledge as you can. Then begin your journey at once. Thank you again for your service, my friends. Seeing your shining faces, I could never doubt that we will emerge from this crisis a stronger, unified nation. Safety and satiation, my friends. The crowd doesn't hesitate and responds with safety and satiation of their own, and begins to vibrate with nerves and excitement. And then, all heck breaks loose, as administrators lining the halls begin to shout out names in what can only be described as perhaps not the most well plot out way to get everyone's attention. It is chaos. Everyone's shouting different names. The crowd is being pulled in every direction trying to find their administrator. It's as if you're being pulled by two different rivers at once, each going down a different fork. Finally, we'll say mercifully, one at a time you begin to hone in on the person shouting your names. Not your code names, but your character names, your real names. Thankfully for you, he is gigantic, easily standing ahead over most of his companions and the crowd as well. An enormous harvest brown Arakakra crowing out your names. As you approach, you can tell he is baffled, even if his brilliant token doesn't necessarily show that. But he is definitely looking over his list and the names that he is shouting out, confusion on his brow. As you approach, that confusion only gets worse, and the first of you, as you start to get close, can start to hear what he's saying when he's no longer saying names. 4, 5, 6. Well, there's definitely 6 of you. Well, that's weird. There were only 4 of you when I last looked. Yeah. Well, no difference to me. Why don't I take you? We'll go outside and get away from this chaos. I can't even hear myself think.
You gonna take us under your wing?
Wonderful.
I'm right behind you. I can't think.
The administrator hears that and maybe gently wraps one of his wings around you, escorting the lot of you right back out the front doors and into the evening air of Porto Maria. You can hear still inside the guild hall that it's chaos, but it's definitely a lot calmer here. There's just a pair of guards standing outside the front door. Racklin takes you to a nearby set of benches, offers you a seat, and says, well, hello. I'm Administrator Racklin, and I'm going to be your liaison with the Culinarians Guild. Think of me as your middleman. I'm the one that's going to be giving you whatever I can to support you from the guild. He is actively shuffling papers and quickly, before I begin, let me just make sure that I've got this all right. I'm looking for Friar. Friar? Mira.
Present.
Raise
Holden.
my hand.
Morthos. Which one of you is Morthos?
Present.
Right. Ruin? Do I?
Oh, sorry. Rayun.
Forgive
Always
me,
one kid.
they maybe wrote that down wrong. And that means you must be Tyrus, man in iron.
Nod at him.
All right, well, at the very least, I got the names right. You may have heard the guildmaster say they were supposed to be teams of 4, and I maintain I had a team of 4. But, well, now I have a team of 6. I'm going to say that that is fortunate. Well, let's get right down to it. Before we begin, I should ask, does anybody have any questions about what the guildmaster was saying? I know it's kind of a lot, and it's not really a good time to ask him much.
So it's true that the that city state just fell?
Yes, it is. And we got confirmation of that about a week ago from both the arrival of the heralds and the first arrival from our hunters and ambassadors that had been stationed in Nazma. It was apparently an interesting affair. He takes a second and sits down on the ground in front of you all. From what the ambassadors tell us, the herald arrived about a week before Telemar arrived himself. She said pretty much the same thing, that they had intercepted the something Dominion, and in that intercepting had saved the plane. The names are a little rough. Well, the current acting government, the Welkers, believed themselves more than capable of handling the arrival of a god, and didn't wait too long before inviting Telemar into their halls. Hall, I guess, Orchid Hall. It's not particularly clear what happened in Orchid Hall, but it is clear that Telemar was upset. Telemar remained upset for only about an hour before deciding that the city had failed, and they described it like the swinging of an axe. Single, fantastic blade coming through and neatly cleaving each building in the city in half. What I will say is the loss of life was virtually none. There is some group that I'm... Oh, yes, the Herald... let's see, he flips through some papers for a second. So you would think I'd write this sort of thing down, but yeah. I believe the Guildmaster called her Mora.
Thank you.
Also, Try, you are absolutely free to just interrupt me.
No, I really don't want to.
Okay. Well, even if you're asking a question, I mean, you ask the question. It's fine.
I just write them down so that way when you get a break naturally.
Sure.
These
That's
aren't
fine.
time sensitive.
Either way is good for me.
Thanks, so.
Yeah. So he says. So the loss of life, though, was virtually non-existent, and we can consider that a blessing. While the Welkers believe themselves more than capable of handling the arrival of the god, well, I guess maybe they're rebels, separatists? I'm not actually sure who they are. But there is some sort of group in there that disagrees with the Welkers' rule, and they took it upon themselves to evacuate the city as best they could. By the time Telemar arrives, we believe there to only have been about 600 people still in the city. And whether or not they believe themselves capable of handling things, once things started to go south, it sounds like the Welkers got their own out of the city as well. So, while the buildings are completely destroyed, all of the city defenses are gone, and we believe from the hunters' initial reports that monsters are already starting to take over the grounds again, At the very least, most of the lives are still intact, shuttled to other nearby islands. They're not particularly safe at the moment. They don't have centuries worth of defenses up, but at the very least, they're alive and they have their guard, any mercenaries that they're able to keep. It sounds like Orchid Hall is expending every resource they still have to try and keep people going.
Administrator Recklin?
Please.
In the briefing earlier, Harold Mora said that at a time of our choosing, she would summon him once we were prepared to face Talamar's judgment of our feast.
Mm-hmm.
What is to prevent us from taking as long as we want? Is there literally no time pressure? I'm concerned that a divine being of infinite time and power might perceive the passage of time differently than we do. Could we be buying our world centuries, decades, or days?
Well, the Guildmaster did bring that up. He brought that up to the guild as a whole when we first heard about Mora, and the counselors spoke on the matter as well. And they mostly agreed that it was best to get this done as quickly as we were able to do safely. Mora was very clear that we were allowed to have as much time as needed, and that Telemar would have plenty of other conquests and victories to keep himself occupied for a bit. However, it was Guildmaster Rare himself who reminded everyone that we have a Tournament of Steel coming up, and even though it's unlikely that many of the counselors are going to be replaced, that is the opportunity for people to rise or change ranks within the guild. And he didn't want anyone in the guild who is not currently facing this potential crisis to have to immediately shoulder that burden. He believed it important that he shoulder it himself. So, we came to a compromise, the guild, the counselors, and Mora, that we would act as quickly as we could to make sure that we took care of this before the Tournament of Steel started. But that we would give ourselves plenty of time so that we could find the proper ingredients, so that we could make sure that all of our preparations were taken care of. That being said, leaving it for centuries might be a problem, and I'd be afraid someone would forget.
Fair enough. Can I ask you a question, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
I apologize if this was in the materials. I really just don't remember the name Telemar, but my character has a fair bit of knowledge in religion. Is this a known deity, or is this like the first time anybody's ever heard of Telemar?
Why don't you give us our first check of this campaign? Yeah, okay. So right?
Right in the meh.
Yeah. I honestly, I was really hoping for a 1 or a 20.
Me too.
It is just meh.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's really set the tone. Let's hope for a nice C. So, you probably have spent a little bit of time ever since the Herald of Telemar's name came up, and you may have even done a little bit of research if you could find it. And we've got libraries here in Porto Maria, but that name does not sound familiar.
Okay.
What immediately comes to mind is actually something that was briefly hinted at by Craventantos, which is the Temple of 1,000 Gods. And you all probably have at least heard of this temple, so this is everybody can remember this at the same time because Holden thought of it in the moment. It's a gigantic temple in Satir. It may be one of the biggest buildings that's not the librariate in all of Satir. It's a temple that competes for favor from the people and has room to host 1,000 gods. And they're very open. You're allowed to worship whoever you like. We can just only host 1,000 of them here. And so it's difficult to say, but with 1,000 gods in that temple, there's a very good chance, yeah, they will know something.
Excellent, thank you.
Absolutely. Let's see. Okay. So, Racklin continues to shuffle papers around a little bit, making sure that he properly answered your question about Mora, and making sure that he knows where he is in all of the information he's supposed to give. He literally has a stack of probably 6 or 7 sheets of parchment that he's getting info off of. So he says, right. Okay, so where was I? So let's talk about the mission, huh? Let's talk about what you're going to be doing, the guild. So the guild master started off by saying that you're going to need to find a culinarian to sponsor you. Naturally, of course, I, being administrator, can't do that, and you can't get a hunter. It has to be a culinarian's guild culinarian, which is very confusing when I say it out loud. I give myself that. Once you found that culinarian, you're going to hand them this sheet of paper, and he hands it to Holden, who's asked the most questions. Have them fill that information out, just listing who's on their team. Gives them the opportunity to name the team, otherwise you are currently Team 23. The last team, by the way, we had 23 teams worth of people. Maybe that's why we had 6 here. There were a couple extra, I guess. Oh. Well, once you get that filled out, bring the paper back to me, and I will trade that piece of paper so that I can properly document everything with these 6 shining associate badges. And he holds up what honestly looks kind of like a sheriff's badge, except in the center, instead of a star, is a crossed chef's knife and sword, the insignia of the Culinarians Guild. Oh, yeah, that actually, I agree with Mira and Feisty. Is that something that you're going to ask me as the GM or Racklin?
You as the GM, because I would assume Fryer would know this.
That is fair. Cardamom is not a member of the Culinarians Guild.
Okay.
Quickly circling up here, does anybody in our assembled group have a connection to a culinarian or have the knowledge of infrastructure to find a culinarian?
Finding a culinarian, maybe, but unlikely that you have a personal connection with one. It's
okay.
The personal connections that you guys had at the beginning. I was looking through them and was careful to confirm that no one has an active connection to the Culinarians Guild as a culinarian. So, as he puts away one of the badges that he was showing off, he says, "This little beauty gives you access to as many resources at the Culinarians Guild as you could be expected to need as part of this mission for the God's Feast. It's very important that I say this because the Guildmaster has insisted we remind everyone that reaching associate status with the Guild and participating in the God's Feast does not give you the right as an official Guild Culinarian. You will have to compete in the Tournament of Steel as all of the other Culinarians Guild members. That being said, with this badge, you get access to free room and board anywhere in Porto Maria, free meals, all covered by costs of the guild, and limited access to requisitions. You need new equipment, we may be able to provide you with that, or at least help you create those resources. Unfortunately, I think it's important I point out, we don't actually have a lot of resources on hand right now. The battalion that we sent to Nazma to help with the refugee effort took most of our culinarians and most of our equipment and resources with them. So finding resources to make requisitions with is going to be a little challenging in the moment. And finding culinarians is going to be pretty challenging.
Racklin, are there any here present in this hall?
Well, unlikely. I know that most of the culinarians have been reached out to in the last couple days to expect people from this meeting, but they all have their own preparations to make. Most of them have laboratories, kitchens, restaurants strewn about the city, so most of them will probably be there waiting for people like their Hollows End folks looking for candy.
Is
That being
there?
said,
No, please.
That being said, the administrators had a meeting before this one to get some ideas for culinarians to recommend. I can make some recommendations for you for people to check out.
That would be
And
lovely.
and I can also say these are the culinarians that I didn't immediately hear all of my fellow administrators talking about. And I think that's important because the last thing that I want to do is send you to your first culinarian when there's 9 other teams vying for their affection. And then if you don't get it, then all of the other culinarians are taken.
Wise.
So,
Just acknowledging that's a wise plan.
So, let's see. I was able to put together 3 that I know are in the city still, that are probably not going to be immediately taken, and that probably have a good shot at getting you a champion dish at the God's Feast. But for your own benefit, of course. The fame and fortune is nice, but mostly the fortune. I will admit there is a coin purse that goes to the administrator to be distributed to their team. So you can expect a pretty decent sum if you are the winner of the tournament. Let's see who we got. Right. So the first culinarian I can recommend is Chef Antonio Rasmi. He's the proprietor of Rasmi's, a fairly well-known seafood place down by the docks. He is exacting. He might be the culinarian I've met with the best knife skills in all of Plenty. And trust me, I've met a few good cut purses that would challenge that. That being said, even though he's got an attention to detail that is almost haunting, he's also the sort of person where if you're working with him and he doesn't like the work you're doing, you might be getting one of those knives, hopefully the blunt side, to the back of your head. I've definitely heard reports from a few of his previous sous chefs just working at his restaurant that it's not exactly a respectful relationship. That being said, he's definitely good at what he does. Let's see. Not that one. Right. Next on the list is Pelma Coalstove. She's an independent and a researcher with the guild. A pretty interesting culinarian. She's flighty. She's the sort of girl that if you saw her, you might think that she's the sort of person that slept in a bubble. Maybe lived in a bubble, talked to herself in a bubble. But she's creative. I've seen some of the works that she's did. I actually watched her at the Tournament of Steel a few years back. And the cake that she baked defied physics in probably 4 different ways. There were floaty bits, and the center of the cake. It was 10 feet tall, and 5 feet up was probably only 3 inches wide. Not sure how she did it, but I will say she's definitely a dreamer, and the sort of person that could dream up a dish worthy of God. So she's worth checking out as well. And the last one, Ranmar Cast Iron. There's no better way to say this, and don't you dare tell any of them that I said this, because I respect each and every one of these people and don't want to get stabbed by Rasmi, that culinarian Cast Iron is crotchety. There's no better way to describe it. The man is human and is about 130 years old. He's been a culinarian for over a century. That being said, he is as technically savvy as any culinarian I've ever met. He invented the culinarian construct program, and that's how we defend ourselves half the time. Even I know a little bit of culinarian construct magic based off of his work. So if you're looking for someone that is technically impressive while also being inventive, Cast and Iron is definitely the person that I would look up. That being said, don't be surprised if he starts talking about the way the world used to be. He remembers.
All right,
Vote
guys.
for-
What do you think? We got Pickled Chef, we got the Dreamer, and we got Gordon Ramsay.
I'm glad I had that same thought too. I like I like Bubble Lady.
Well, so if we're supposed to, if this is a contest and we want our dish to win, wouldn't it behoove us to research the god and see if we know what their preferences are? Because those are three very different cooking styles and specialties, all with their own quirks. But if the Bubble Lady is a really impressive baker and cakes are a specialty of hers, but this god doesn't like cakes, then would we be better off going with one of the other chefs?
Can we ask Racklin if there's a timetable issue and how long we have to try to find culinarian sponsorship?
You could see a smile on his beak as you ask. He says, "Here's the thing. We have months, right? We realistically could start cooking 3 months from now and be just fine as far as preparing a dish. But almost any second, 22 other teams are going to walk out of Alder's Hall and go looking for culinarians. That's not true. 15 other teams because the guild counselors all picked a team to sponsor already. Sort of cherry picking a lot. Honestly, probably not fair."
Oh, and they didn't pick us? Missed opportunity.
We got picked last.
Oh, codename
I
23.
I have a meta question for you, Zell.
What's up?
I have a meta question for you.
Please?
Did you think of this whole campaign after we started yelling "Yes, Chef" in raid?
Technically, in the timeline, yes, but that was not a direct influence. I'd already been kind of working on something.
Okay.
Okay,
Did this
chef.
influence you yelling "Yes, Chef" in raid?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
Zell,
please.
Does Rayun remember where Neko is right now?
To my knowledge, you left Neko probably at the place of lodging. So, assuming that you were staying at an inn in town, probably there.
Okay.
Alternately, there is a world where you took Neko with you, and there's just a small tabaxi standing here. But that is entirely up to you.
I think I'll leave him at the lodging.
Works for me.
So, Racklin, could you tell us if you know any of the god's preferences for food or drink, or are we allowed to ask the herald?
I can't say I do. I'm perfectly honest, I've never heard of Telemar until I heard that he'd blown up a city-state. That being said, we've been doing the research that we can. As part of the envoys that we sent out to Satir, we definitely sent at least one administrator to scour the records of the temples, 1,000 Gods, and the librariate in order to try and figure out as much as we can. I will say, though, all of the culinarians that you're going to be interacting with have known about this assignment just about since Mora first arrived to tell us about it. So they have had a little bit of time to do research of their own. Most of these culinarians have small libraries of their own for recipes and the like. Wouldn't surprise me if any of the culinarians that you found had been doing research trying to figure out what Telmar might like.
Okay, so any of the culinarians that we work with will be able to speak to some of his preferences and let us know what ingredients we need to collect.
That's my hope, at least. And if you find one that doesn't know that information, maybe you should talk to another one.
All right, we'll make that part of our interview process then. Which one is the closest to it where we are right now?
Probably either Pelna or Castin Iron. Their workshops are pretty close together, and the docks are all the way on the other side of town, so Rasmi's is probably the furthest away.
Rasmi's the exacting Gordon Ramsay one, and
And we are an idiot sandwich.
Code name idiot sandwich.
like, I think Holden would be very attracted to that kind of exacting personality if we were talking about the fate of the universe at stake. I want someone who's going to beat me until I'm perfect, but someone who is a little more gentle but could be equally as outstanding and creative might be a better fit for us.
I would think that you would be more attracted to the inventor, no?
That's a good fit too.
Yeah.
I just
kinda
don't trust someone who would play with cakes instead of actual machinery.
Oh, she was my first pick too, but
Yeah.
Let's. You guys want to? We can go like forsake the docks for now, then, and head towards.
well, those two are closest, so
Yeah, that's
we
what I'm
can
saying,
make our
yeah.
way toward the docks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we happen to
Prob-
find a good fit on our way, so we have the piece of paper that the culinarian has to fill out if they're going to take us on.
We or me?
You
Mhm.
have the piece of paper.
You have it.
And did each of us get our own badges, or is one person going to hold all of them?
We don't get those yet, I think, until we get backing by a culinarian.
I see.
Yep,
We don't need no
Racklin still
stinking
has them.
badges.
Okay, so our current mission is just to get the culinarian first, and then we'll get next steps on what our
Yep.
little group is going to be accomplishing.
Yeah.
So let's go see Princess Buttercup Bubble Baker.
Yes,
Yeah.
because she's with Cast and Iron, close to Cast and Iron.
Close enough, yeah.
Yeah. Go see Bubble Lady.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Well,
Racklin, how do we contact you when we're done?
he kind of bristles his feathers. Oh, right. I suppose you will need to talk to me. I have an office here at Allers Hall, so you'll be able to reach out to me there. Just talk to any of the administrators, and they'll be able to point you to me. That being said, I'm on the second floor, sort of at the far end of the wing. He ruffles his wings to emphasize the point.
Nice.
As if there's anything else I could do for you, please feel free to reach out. But otherwise, safety and satiation to you. He nods, straightens up the papers he still has, and makes his way back into the hall, nodding to the guards. And you can hear that the crowd inside the hall starting to get closer, as if maybe people are getting ready to leave.
We
Let's go.
should get going. Go, 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 go.
Smoke bomb.
Yes, a smoke bomb.
Why?
Okay. So we start to make our way to the area that he indicated Pelna and Ranmar are. Who do we come to first?
Before you do, I'm going to have everybody just make... I'm going to have you choose either perception or insight. You're free to use either one if you like. I'm looking at Morthos and grinning because that's going to be fun.
Yeah, fuck me, right?
Right? Ooh, a lot of people are doing that with advantage. It's all right. We can get that out of the way.
Oh, that's
Is
for
that-
saving throws.
Yeah.
If you
Fun.
have the cogwheel in the upper right-hand corner next, you'll see a trifecta that says Core Bio Spells. The cogwheel, if you click on, will have right below it rolls queried, advantage toggle always on or always off. Just make sure you toggle advantage. That way, it's not always going to roll everything with advantage.
Yep. And in the meantime, I could take these ones, the first one of these for this first roll.
For fucking Inception. Jesus, this is gonna be bad.
I
Oof.
actually have
Hey,
I have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. Does that apply here for perception?
Nah, it's
Oh,
not a saving throw.
got
There's not someone trying to do something to you.
it. Okay.
Or something, I guess. So this is just a check, but that's okay. So Rayun and Mira, you're each going to see something different. And this isn't so secret and important that I'm going to DM you, but it is interesting. Mira, as you take a quick glance at the incoming horde, you notice that they are maybe walking a little slower than you might have expected a horde of eager competition participants to be walking, because walking in front of them is Mora, the host of Telemar, well, the Herald of Telemar, and her host. Four other men and women also wearing those emerald robes. They are walking at their own pace, and no one dares cross them.
Kind of like not passing a police car.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Totally understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to wait until you talk to Rayun?
Yeah, real
before I
quick,
tell the
because you
group?
both
Okay.
notice this at roughly the same time
Okay.
as you guys are leaving. Independently of that, Rayun, you see off in the distance, one of the windows is lit up particularly bright, and you can spot, this is like third story, far side of the building. There is someone looking out the window at you, and he is a rather large, not necessarily tall, just large, dragonborn man.
Shit.
And he is smiling like a new father.
Mm.
That's all.
Outside of game, I think I might know who that is.
Well, outside of game, that's not a good person,
You don't know that.
fine.
but I do.
Well, I didn't see that, so I'm going to point out that we should split while there's the rest of the crowd is still kind of being buffered by the herald.
Yeah, let's
get in front of the cops.
Yes. Before they cross in front of us.
let's skedaddle.
Friar would definitely say "fuck the police."
Mhm.
Not gonna lie.
That's funny.
As a brief aside before we get to traveling, hey, if you hear me typing, sorry, my mechanical keyboard's really freaking loud, and I can't be on push to talk right now because I'm just talking too much, and none of you can see it because I'm not on video, but I am gesturing like a madman
Nice.
because
I
it helps me get my point across.
feel like maybe we should have video then.
Maybe one day. But this is on Twitch, and Twitch isn't ready for my shining face.
All right, are we ready to wander?
Let's
All
go.
right.
Yeah, I think we should.
So it sounds like you guys scoot your way down back into town proper, ahead of the horde and also ahead of the cops. Outside of the excitement of the hall, the rest of the town is still buzzing a little bit, but it is evening on probably a weekday, and there's only so much activity, right? There's only so many bars that can be open, especially when most of their patrons just left to go to the other side of the country. So it's pretty easy to get around town. We lost food for a second. That happens.
All right.
Finding Pelna Kolstov's lab/restaurant, pretty easy affair. Maybe because one or two of you live in the city or in the area, Maybe because there's still city guards that can point you in the right direction, and they'll point you to pretty much whatever you need. The coal stoves, the cast and irons, the transmog place, the bank, whatever. You're able to get directions pretty easy. And what you find is a tiny scene transition. What?
Ooh.
No way I did that right. Maybe. You find yourselves like kind of at a side street. It's dark, it's kind of somber, and the building that you were instructed to go to, you could see it's got a very, frankly, probably too well painted sign. Like somebody put a lot more effort into this sign than the whole rest of the building.
Marketing.
Clearly identifying, right? This is the Coalstone Lab. And so the sign is decorated both with some scientific equipment of some glass vials and such, and quite a bit of bubbling concoctions, and also some baked goods.
That kind of store.
Oh, I wish I said the creamery. But no, this is just a lab and a restaurant. It sounds like there are a decent number of these that culinarians have, where they are both places that they can work and research and also serve people so that they can make the guild some more money.
I like Labstraunt. Before we go in,
Oh my goodness.
I
I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Before we go in, we should probably have a plan on who's going to speak for our little team. I know Holden because we've worked together before on a number of projects, but the other 4 people are new to us. So I don't know what your strengths are, and if talking to people is one of them.
I can talk to people.
My brilliance is wasted on anyone besides myself.
Oof.
Well, I'm willing to learn.
I'd prefer not to talk to anyone.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
I mean, I'll happily do it. They're just gonna find themselves insulted, I'm sure.
I have a high
I-
charisma, so does that mean that I'll likely be the talking to new people person?
That was in character, by the way,
Oh yeah.
because I love talking to people.
This is not the kind of place that you want me talking right now, or this is not the situation you want me talking right now.
Okay.
What is all that squawking?
Well, let's go in and just see how this plays out.
I will.
I love that we have got 5 edgelords and Destiny, which is almost true. So here's a fun test, and most of the reason that we have this screen. Would everybody mind confirming that they have control of those tokens?
I do not have control.
Yes! That is the best. That means
I don't.
this
even.
is a problem that we have in every campaign I've ever run. For some reason, nobody can ever control their characters.
Huh.
So I'm going to try a quick experiment to see if we can get that to work. Because I can do it on the GM side. I can do everything. I am God. But, it's important that you be able to control yourselves too. So, X, would you mind seeing now if you can control your token?
I cannot.
That is a problem. And we're just going to have to make that work at some point. Okay. I'm definitely going to fiddle with this at some point, and it's not going to be right now because I don't want to lose steam. So, in the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to control your tokens, and you tell me where you want them.
Okay, I want to go inside.
All right. So, you guys can tell, just as you guys are pulling up to the building, this place is closed. There is not a light on. And for the equivalent of 7 o'clock on a Friday night, This place shouldn't be closed.
Is there a sign for hours of operation?
There is, and it's definitely within hours of operation.
Curious.
Is there
a
anything-
back to the building?
There's definitely a back. Why don't
Is
I
there-
get fresh perception checks? I'm going to be rolling this a lot,
Nice.
or having you roll this a lot. Oh, X, we're going to have a good time.
Oh, look, another 18.
You're the one that helped me build this character, you asshole.
What skills are going to be useful? I don't know. Medicine? Got him.
Orphans, are you okay? Wait, is that a tree?
I do have dark vision. You want me to turn it on? I can turn on my dark vision.
Oh, yeah, you could definitely see right now.
Yeah, I can.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
job.
So Holden and Rayun, while you guys are investigating this building, trying to figure out, how to get in or see if there's anyone in there, you hear the unmistakable sound of a spoon dropping inside the building.
Was it
Metal
like
spoon or
a
wooden spoon?
Metal spoon.
was it like a frantic like drop, like it was dropped really fast, or was it like kind of
Full
like
on.
Oh,
Nice. Good sound.
I looked
effect.
over and saw I had a spoon on hand.
Nice.
Perfect.
Can one of us call out? Can I call out? Who's there?
You absolutely, yeah. As you call it out, there is. You've freaking criticaled that. You hear just for a second, like one or two very quick hushed whispers.
There's no point in hiding. We heard your spoon. We're out here seeking culinary representation so that we might save the world from a god. Please open up.
So maybe the jig is up. Maybe they are just not wanting to sponsor you, but you definitely hear that there's some shuffling going on inside. And 15, 20 seconds later, the door unlatches, swings open, and 5 men walk outside. Almost assuredly, none of them are the Lady Culinarian Pelman Coalstove.
Good evening, gentlemen. Why is the bakery not open?
The man in the middle with the brightest red of bandanas. Well, how the heck am I supposed to know? Might as well ask you that. You just got here.
Oh, I mistook you being in the bakery for operating the bakery. Is this not the case? Then please step aside.
Nah, bakery's closed. Can't you see? There's no one in there anymore.
Where's Palma?
Couldn't say. Was looking for the same thing you're probably looking for, trying to get my guild sponsorship. And the culinarian doesn't even have the politeness to meet with guests. So I guess we're stuck.
Tyrus is going to say, why are there 5 of you if you're looking for a sponsorship? I thought they broke us up into 4 groups, or groups of 4.
Group of 4.
Well, allow me to introduce myself. Brandon Stafford, representative of the Star Anise Rubies. He puts on the sort of grin that you might see from a Final Fantasy protagonist, and it just doesn't quite work. He says, the Rubies and I are a pretty upstart mercenary band. Based not too far south of here, but we heard there was going to be a commotion, thought we'd offer our hands to help.
Excellent. Having seen the assembled group of you now, I'm quite certain you're pronouncing that wrong.
Pronouncing what wrong?
I'm certain it's not Anise.
Hey!
It's definitely an anus.
If it's all the
A,
same
nu-
to you,
a noose.
We'll take a look inside the bakery. Thanks for opening the door for us.
He as you make that gesture, he puts his hand on the door frame and says, "Now, hold on, miss. I already told you there's no one in there. But
Then
maybe
you won't
this is a
mind
good enough."
I check it out myself?
He looks to the gnome standing next to him, who nods back and says, "Aye, we could. Or we could just knock you flat here. Get a couple-hour head start on finding ourselves a culinarian."
Morthos walks forward and just stands there intimidatingly. So like to hear.
Yeah, somehow now I can't even control tokens.
Oh
It is-
no.
What on earth happened? Oh, I was
Make
on
sure
the
you have
wrong
the
layer.
select tool.
Yes. I was trying to move the GM layer.
And I do have like a high intimidation.
Yeah. What do you got to say, demon?
Gnarls and said, I snarl and say, that's an unwise decision.
Go ahead and make your intimidation roll. Actually, I bet I know how to make a GM roll myself. Never had to do this in my life. Sure don't. Heck yeah. Okay. He gives you one look, says, "Yeah, right. And what are you gonna do? You ain't a wizard. You ain't a cleric." He
Right.
he flat out draws a couple knives and says, "Bet you wouldn't know how to use one of these if it bit you."
We'd like to put the steel defender right next to Mira and draw back the crossbow.
Okay.
Friar. Wait.
I mean, you guys are about ready to see my affliction, so
I would like to do something else before we immediately go into combat.
Oh, I'm trying to dissuade the combat.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear from Feisty, and then I heard from Destiny, and then we'll see what happens.
Friar's gonna start off by. Here is what I want to do. Friar would like to cast Friends on the person that is talking, and intimidate him as well by saying, "He might not be, but I am a cleric." And then makes the sound of a rumbling cart carriage.
Why don't you go ahead and link the friend spell so that I know what you're talking about, and then go ahead and cast it. We'll see what happens.
Are they hostile towards me yet?
Technically not yet.
Okay.
Nice.
So I have advantage on what would be an intimidation check.
Mm-hmm. Jeez.
Fuck off.
Amazing.
Okay.
Move there if I can.
How's that?
Yeah, that works.
He's in the middle of twirling one of those knives that he was flashing, and stops as you say that. Looks to the gnome. The gnome is like kind of expectantly egging him on. Like, wait, what are we doing? Come on, let's go. And he says, "All right, fine, whatever. You want to look inside the lab? Go ahead. It's not like we did anything untowards. Except to a spoon, I guess.
Spoon you later.
Come on, lads. We got other doors we can knock on. And they turn tail. Not to run, but just flipping you a peace sign, 2 fingers,
Mhm.
and start to walk away.
Farewell, Ruby Anuses.
Smell you later.
Are they walking toward our next guy? Toward his location?
They are walking generally in that direction.
I feel like we should probably get to cast an iron before they do, but I also think that one or two of us should stay behind and check out the bakery and look for any signs of Pelna.
I'll stay behind.
Let's split the party.
I mean, if it's really just like a couple doors down, because Reknar said that they were close. Racklin said that they were really close together. How close are they?
Probably a block or 2.
Rayun's had the best perception rolls so far tonight. Consistently.
I don't mind splitting the party. I think that's sort of an unnecessarily cautious D&D trope, but he shouldn't be by himself. There should be a second person to stay behind. We want to leave 2 people to scout this
I was thinking
creation station.
maybe you stay with him because you've got the pet.
Sure.
In case you
I'm fine
guys
with
get
that.
into trouble, and that leaves 4 of us to go with 4 of them. Try to
It's a good
get in
split.
front of them.
I have like 9 weapons on my person at all times.
Okay, what do you guys think?
Oh my god.
4 of us move forward to talk to Ranmar,
Yeah.
and 2 stay behind.
That sounds good. I'm on
I
board.
guess I'll go with the edgelords.
This group is so edgy.
My character isn't edgy though.
Do you want to do? So do you want to do 3? So we're doing 4 and 2, not 3 and 3.
Yeah, 4 and 2, because Holden has his pet, so that's kind of like a third character.
That makes it 7.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, I'm going to. Let's start by talking about the bakery real fast.
Okay.
Sure.
It was Holden and Rayun that were staying, and little Holden.
Indeed.
Optimus Holden.
His
Holden
penis is his own.
NPC, but go
Is his
ahead.
own pet. What's going on? We got the ruby anuses, and then we got little Holden. What's going on? What did I sign up for?
Is your last name Wood?
Guys, I made a mistake here. I see now that the item is called Mechano Clock. I may have built my backstory around a misinterpretation of that.
Okay, so while the other 4 march off, hey, the rubies left the door open, literally open for you, and yeah, this place is quiet. It's clean. It looks like nobody's cooked in here all day, but there is not a single butt in a seat. There are no lanterns lit. Outside a spoon, there is nothing in the kitchen that's out of place. It doesn't even take much of an investigation roll to see that this place is untouched. Probably has been for a day or 2. Not a lot of dust, though.
Are there any interior doors that lead to storage areas or an above or below ground? Like, is there a second story or a basement?
Oh, yeah, there's a larder downstairs and probably personal quarters upstairs.
I mean, we're here to check it out, right? So, what do you think, Rayun? Do you want to just go upstairs and then scout that out, and if there's something there, go downstairs?
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's check up the upstairs.
Okay.
Not carelessly, but methodically, we'd like to clear the entire building.
Yeah, totally. Would you like to make a skill check alongside that?
Sure. Can I also roll perception for the doggo, since he's better at perceiving things than I am?
Yeah, that makes sense. And Rayun, you're allowed to make that same roll as well.
Okie dokie.
Or whichever skill roll you'd like.
I guess perception would be okay. Or actually,
So if you'd rather investigation, I can roll that as Holden.
Okay. I'll I guess I can just do perception again.
Goodness.
Goodness
right.
gracious.
You don't even have a bonus on that. You're just amazing.
I am just Rayun.
Okay.
Is this the younglings bonus?
Yeah, we'll call this first timers bonus at least.
Yeah.
So, investigating the interior, we'll start actually with Glitch and Rayun, which is that as you guys start going upstairs in particular, there are a couple fairly recently burnt out candles. There's maybe a light, there's a little bit as if someone was here a little while ago. And this definitely wasn't the Rubies. They wouldn't have left anything with this kind of care. But you make your way upstairs, and this is definitely a private chamber for someone. And if the sign and the room that you walk into are any indication, it's definitely Pelna's private quarters. This place is bubbly pink. It's got the warm light that bathes it in orange, and otherwise, this is practically a candy shop. It's so sweet. Pelna's not here, but it definitely looks like under normal circumstances he lives here.
Is there a telescope?
There is not a telescope.
Oh boy.
Last time I was looking for a baker in a candy shop, he was on the moon, so.
Oh yeah.
Looking
Is there a
around.
goose?
Looking around, are there any like desks? And if so, is there any papers on that desk, like a journal or anything?
Yeah, she has, like, there is a certain amount of administration that anybody that runs a restaurant has to do. And so, yeah, you can find a desk that has mostly just ledgers and accounting documents. Even the handwriting that you see on there is bubbly and not in black ink. But as far as, like, any other correspondence, actually, well, your rolls were pretty darn good. Included in those documents, you also find, gosh dang it, the investigation wasn't that good of a roll. You also find a letter a letter addressed to Pelna. It's been ripped open, but it looks pretty recent as well.
Addressed to Pelna.
Yep. No return address.
It's probably a gross invasion of privacy.
I mean, you're practically in her bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've come this far. What's one more sin?
Right.
I guess so.
You pop the letter open, and it is not written in flowery writing at all. This is practically Times New Roman. But the letter quite plainly says, Helena, dear, you must come and work with me. I cannot let you do this on your own. Furthermore, I must stress that if you're going to use these fanciful recipes, these fanciful designs, you might as well be serving a god whipped cream. Plain. Please come work with me, and we can find a solution together. Ranmar.
Ranmar. What do you think, Holden?
I think that's interesting. I think that we should leave this here so that no one necessarily knows that we disturbed it. But Zell, would it be feasible if I use one of my tinkers? I still have 4 available to make a copy of the letter so that we have a duplicate, a literal facsimile as proof or reference for later.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. Go ahead and put a copy of Pelna's letter in your inventory.
Nice.
And Holden has invented the photocopier.
Nice.
That's a really cool Tinker's construct.
Waving my tinker's tools across it, I create a bright flash of light, and a piece of parchment materializes from the ethereal energy conjured by my spell, and it becomes solidified, a copy, exactly the same as the letter that was written to Pelna, except it hasn't been folded.
That's important. Legally distinct.
Mm-hmm.
And now we fold it and put it in our
We
bag.
leave it, put it back where it was. I'll put that in my bag of holding and let's go down to the basement. And all along so far, there's been like no signs of a struggle or abduction or any
Nope.
ne'er-do-well intention. Yeah, okay.
None at all. It just looks like someone forgot to turn the lights on and show up to work.
Let's just do our due diligence and check out the basement, and then it seems like she maybe went to pursue this other person or has perhaps already engaged services with another group of people. But let's check out the basement.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a larder, and this is a larder that is probably actually pretty standard, maybe even a little quaint by culinarian standards. But again, you're getting some real candy shop vibes. There's a lot of sugar and flour in here. That being said, it is completely dark in here, and there are no signs of life. Probably not even bugs and rats.
I'm going
Just keeping
to
a clean shop.
close my eyes tightly, revealing the black, opaque nictitating membranes that give me dark vision, just in case that was an issue.
That's fair. I also wouldn't have been surprised if you just like lit a candle. But yeah, absolutely, you could take a look around.
Just a once over. It seems like there's no reason to suspect that she's been somehow hidden in the larder, but I just want to put eyes on every corner of the room.
Yeah, totally. And I can roll this in with your guys' previous perception and investigation rolls. Yeah, there's nothing out of place here. There isn't even like coin stashed away under a floorboard. It mostly just looks like a place where they had ingredients stored. It's
Alright.
cold. That's nice.
It is nice. We did our due diligence, Rayun. I guess we rejoin the others? ?
Yeah. Let's
Share with them the letter if we catch up.
Oh, definitely.
All right. I guess we're done here. Thanks, Zell.
Yeah, totally. All right. Second half of the party. This being Morthos, Mira, Tyrus, and Friar.
Yep.
Okay.
We
Hello.
are
Half of
speed
that.
walking, trying to beat
Half-
that other group.
Yeah, totally. So they had, a 20-second head start. But they turned off pretty early. And you can follow them and try and tail them to see if they're going to Cast and Irons. Or you can just try and race and see if you can beat them there.
Are they not
Mhm.
taking a more direct route?
They're not taking a direct route.
Then I say we go the most direct.
Take the direct route.
Okay.
Because I don't think we want to be around them when that guy realizes that the friend spell has worn off and becomes an enemy.
It's worn off by now.
Oh,
Stop
yeah.
concentrating on it. He definitely had a moment of, wait a second.
It's really funny. He's just like, you know what? That guy was actually a dick.
Let's not remind him.
Wow.
It wasn't nearly as intimidating as I thought he was. Why was I scared?
Especially while his gnomish friend is ribbing him of like, dude, why did you let him? Why did I let him?
He
Whatever.
literally had bird arms.
And all he said was squawk.
All right, so we're walking to Randmars.
That's
Totally.
racist.
Okay, so Ranmar's is a little more well lit. It's a little bit brighter. And one of the neat things about that is that Ranmar's is on a main street. You even have a pretty good idea of the area around you because honestly, you could see pretty far ahead. And because of that, that you don't immediately see any of the rubies as you go.
Uh-oh. We don't immediately see them.
Nope.
Okay. To
Uh,
Mars.
This is a fun thing that I think works. As I just move the map. Because I can do that. You've effectively just moved down the street a little bit to find yourself at Ranmar's. Ranmar's is definitely open. The light is on. That being said, this door is locked.
Do we see
And
people
you can
inside?
hear. You could definitely hear people inside. You can even see people inside. At least you can see a couple people inside. There's nobody sitting at any tables.
I'm gonna rap on the door.
When you do, the door opens, and before the door fully opens even, you hear what honestly kind of sounds like a domestic dispute. Like, there is some pretty engaged shouting between two parties, one of each gender, and they are at least in heated debate.
Do we pick up what they're saying?
Yeah, actually. The first word that anybody picks up is the male voice shouting, "Cinnamon! Cinnamon is the answer!" The second voice, much calmer despite being pretty loud, is, "Cinnamon is not always the answer." He says, "Yes, it is! Cinnamon is always the answer." Oh. It maybe just realizes that he or someone else opened the door. He says, "Oh. Is it that time already?"
If
Oh, well.
cinnamon is always the answer, then what is the question?
Come in, come in.
Maybe
Let's
cinnamon is the question.
let's not waste any
Cinnamon.
heat. The man waves you all in. And I'm going to quickly do this.
Whoa!
That's not right. Go away.
Oh,
Did we
I
see
didn't
the
see
weird
anything.
cheese? Okay.
We're just gonna do this.
I didn't
And
see
I'm gonna
anything.
ask myself how that happened later.
In before we get attacked by a three-headed dog and a dragon.
Right?
It was a cheddar alligator.
A cheddar gator?
So, the four of you guys are moving as a group in a way that's annoying. But you enter the building, and sitting there, waiting for you, are a fairly creatively dressed dwarven woman and a guy that looks like he's 60 years past his midlife crisis, who are fantastically debating something that's probably involving cinnamon. But they, as you enter, they both stop and sort of straighten out their clothing and say, "Please, come in, come in. We were expecting someone, but must have lost track of time. It's amazing how much research you could do when the world is on the line. You must be from, well, the potential associates. All four of you."
That is correct.
There's actually 6 of us. 2 are lagging behind.
Hardiness. That is a shame. Well, I suppose I will have to... Yes. We'll just have to begin the examination with 4 of you then. Pelna raises one of her hands and says, Ranmar, you have got to calm down. It's fine. We have a minute. There is, as she says that, a rapping at the door behind you, and Ranmar grabs a nearby pot, spins, and hurls that pot over your head at the door. The door is cracked open, and as it's pushed open, you see that steel pot connect directly with Brandon Stafford's face. Ranmar shouts, "We're busy and closed!" And the door slams shut behind you. He pauses for a second and says, Oh, shoot, unless those were your associates. Oh,
don't
dear.
worry. That was the Ruby Anuses.
But,
what a bad team name.
they were also at Paloma's. Palona's? Is
Pelna.
it Pelna? They're also at Pelna's place, too.
So, did you come to see me first? Oh, that's lovely. Oh, thank you.
We were worried because we found them inside your shop with the door open and we heard a noise inside. So our colleagues are actually at the bakery looking for you to make sure that you're okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to open the restaurant, didn't I? Well, I've been here for almost 2 days now. I should probably check in with my staff.
Or at least maybe leave a note to let people know that you're okay and that the restaurant is closed temporarily. We're
That would
happy to
have
see you
been
safe.
That would have been wonderful. I will definitely do that. Ranmar steps forward and says, Pelna, please, we have a business to attend to. We have to properly determine whether this is the team that we're going to sponsor. We only get one, you see. She says, yeah, but there's 2 of us. Why can't we have 2? And he says, that's not how it works, Pelna. We can only have 1.
We were told that we needed to find a culinarian to sponsor us. Are we allowed to have 2 culinarians sponsor us?
Almost simultaneously, Pelna says, no. And Ranmar says, yes, of course.
I like them already.
They look at each other with disdain for a second. He's technically, the guildmaster did say that we were only supposed to have 1 team because we were only preparing 1 dish. But he didn't say anything about 1 team serving 2 different culinarians. I don't think he suspected there'd be enough culinarians for that. But Pelna forgot to get on the battalion ship. She just kind of smiles and says, it left very early. He says, so we have an extra culinarian, and I figure is probably best if she works with me so that I could keep her on track. She chimes in, and so that I can keep him from losing his mind.
Well, if you don't tell anyone, I won't.
There's another rapping at the door. And Ranmar grabs the nearest implement, which is a big old set of grilling tongs, and hurls them. And we're talking, this is like 50 or 60 feet. Hurls them at the front door where they stick into the wood. But this is not Brandon Stafford.
I'll get the door.
You definitely see that Holden and Rayun are waiting for you.
I'm gonna go open the door and let them in. And return
Right,
the
so
tongs to Ranmar.
Why, hello. Glad you opened the door for us.
Ah, so this is the rest of your party, eh?
Yes.
I like the metal one. Well, I suppose this is as appropriate as any. An extra large team of sous chefs for an extra large team of culinarians. All right. If you'll have us, we would love to sponsor you. Pelna says, that's not how it works either, Ranmar, and you know that. He says, of course that's how it works. If I want to sponsor them, I sponsor them. She says, no. You were just talking about wanting to test your sponsor to make sure they didn't die in the wilderness, right? And he says, well, yes, of course, there will be a test. I suppose the lot of you are not opposed to being tested, right?
We're not opposed to being tested, but we have some questions for you as well before we proceed.
Okay, I got drug tested last week.
Yes, by all means. It's not like anyone's going to interrupt. What do you need?
We were told that the culinarians were given a little bit of a heads up and have had the opportunity to research Telemar on the god's interests. Is that something that you've been doing together over the last few days in preparation for the dish that you plan to prepare?
He waves his hands almost dismissively at your question, says, of course. I've been researching for the last 5 days straight, tearing apart every culinarian's guild tome that I can get my hands across. Poor Pelna's archives are practically in shambles, although most of them are practically coloring books. She
Follow-up question.
kind of huffs when he says that. But what's
We
up?
heard from a block away. What if Thelamar doesn't like cinnamon?
Well, that's ridiculous. Everyone likes cinnamon.
But assume, as
I'm
unlikely
allergic.
as it might be, that this particular deity does not.
I have terrible news for you. I'm allergic to cinnamon.
Oh no! Oh.
Fire has a bad day.
Well, geez, who's the third choice? Because this guy's not going to choose us now.
Yes, well, that's ridiculous. First off, of course, the god Thalamar likes cinnamon. But I say that not just because everyone likes cinnamon, but also because there's reason to believe that a recent visit to a plane that he took place on, what he was gifted a basket that included cinnamon brandy. And I believe that this went over well. Now, I can't confirm that. The records are several hundred years old, but I'm hopeful that that gift going over well enough confirms that that is the answer I'm looking for.
Excellent. Good to hear. Sometimes the elderly can be stuck in their ways and implacable.
Who are you calling elderly? I am as sprite as the day I was born.
And when
so
were you
so
born?
I can see, gesturing to the pan in the wall.
Goodness. Perhaps I should let the star folks in and let you have a rousing debate about who gets our favor. Then again, I didn't like the look of that one. He could barely catch.
Face.
Well, Pelna, what have you prepared? I've been working all afternoon on tests. He says, I've seen the things you're working on, and they're miserable. They're hilarious. They're awful. Very well. Summon them forward, and we'll see about getting them crushed so that we can move on to proper experiments. And I can see the look in your eyes, questioning person. Yes, I've done my research. I already have ideas for the dish that I want to create. If I'm right, This dish will be a one-of-a-kind dish, not just in plenty, but in all of the planes. No one's ever actually successfully finished it.
Nice.
Pelna rolls her eyes at the sound of him starting to brag again and walks over to a nearby stove. He says, "Oh, you're starting with that one even?" She says, "Yes, of course I'm starting with this one. It's my favorite." And she reaches a hand into the oven and very quickly pulls out a pastry that she flings only halfway across the restaurant. As she does, that pastry begins to take form. The form of a small bipedal rabbit.
Bun Bun.
She says, "Isn't this just the best?" He says, No. Would you please smash that thing so that we can move on with the rest of our nights?"
Should we roll initiative?
She, in anticipation of that question, says, "Fine. If you're not going to let me play with just the favorite." She reaches back into the oven and starts flinging out a couple other things. And they start appearing throughout the kitchen. And yeah, go ahead and roll initiative.
So, Zell, if I can interject real quick.
Yeah.
I had pre-made tokens for my characters and set them as the default tokens. If I drag them on, I can control them and they work just fine. So I'm thinking what that means is that when you remade these tokens, you did not assign them to the characters.
That's interesting, because I definitely have all of them
Me too.
with the default token set.
How do you guys make your own tokens? What are you doing?
So, like, if you had your character sheet assigned to a default token, you can just pull your character out of the journal onto the battle map, and if it has a default token assigned to it, like this is Holden. But for some reason, my glitch is the token that I made. It's the transparent background, and it should have a visible health bar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually make Friar's token, but I'm still like the one I pulled out. I'm able to move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, because I thought I dragged them from the same place.
Are they on
well.
the GM layer and not the player layer?
No, we're definitely all interacting on the object layer.
We wouldn't
know
be able
what?
to see it if it was on the GM layer.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a weird one, and I'm just gonna have to figure it out as I go.
Sure.
I am gonna open up one thing that I just spotted that is cause for
Aw.
concern.
my thing didn't work.
Our tokens are huge.
Everybody should delete the huge
Yeah.
tokens before we complicate Zell's life.
Oh no, it's fine. Well, go. They're all gone. No, I was actually going to suggest that you just drag them back on, and then I will properly size them, and we can just work with those for the now.
My health and AC aren't set for mine at all.
Yeah.
In that you can't see it, or that they reflect incorrect numbers.
They inflect incorrect numbers because they are blank.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to worry about that one less because I know that you can keep track of your health on your character sheets.
Yeah.
As long as you can tell me what your numbers are and I can look at them, that one I think is fine.
All right.
Let's delete these ones. And I will shrink these ones to the appropriate size. And hey, also feel free to place yourselves in roughly the formation you would have been standing in.
Oh, I would have been over here because I brought him back his tongs.
Oh, yep, that is true. Let's see. I want to make one more quick test while we're still kind of feeling things out. not that one.
Where's
But I gave.
Murathos?
He hasn't done this yet because he had an emergency AFK.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
I was hopeful that I had given everyone permission, and apparently I did not. That's okay. We're not going to worry about it.
Do you have the turn tracker open?
I sure don't, because I don't know how to do that.
Looks like a clock face.
Oh, look at that. Let's see.
I love this map. This is awesome.
It's very homely. I like it.
Okay, and then you. Okay, so I'm going to ask try this, and I'm not going to feel bad about the fact that I don't know how this all works. I'm assuming that when I click this arrow, it shuffles through initiative. Nailed it.
Mhm.
And that if I want to add someone, I use the add custom item thing within the gear.
You can just right-click on the token and click Add Turn.
Oh, that's way easier. Sweet.
And then just from the cogwheel, put them in descending order when you're done.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Let's see. We could still use an initiative from Rayun. So if you wouldn't mind clicking on your character and then rolling initiative based on that. Clicking on the roll initiative on your character sheet. That's what I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. That gives me a chance to practice my end.
Okay.
And you want to just put Morthos on like a 1 or a 0 turn order? And give him some.
I was going to at least roll initiative for him.
Nice.
I just did. For some reason, I have access to his character.
Okay.
Odu.
It
You
must
changed
be
yours
everybody.
and shift to 9 though.
All right. Well, I can fix that later too. Let's do this. And oh, I see what happened. So you become a 15 and I add him manually. Got it.
I also have access to Murathos' character sheet.
It must be open access. It's in everybody's journal, and everybody can. We can fix that later,
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
as long as nobody's a dick.
Yeah. I can politely trust you on that. Okay. And then I guess I do actually have to roll for these, don't I? Which means I open the journal myself. Hey, I'm learning as I go. Heck yeah. I need this. Really feel like there should be an initiative. There it is. Give me just a sec, guys. This is me learning how initiative works.
Yeah, no worries.
You.
Huh.
And I've forgotten who's in my own combat. Got it. I am definitely have to pop out all of these character sheets because holy crap, that gets cluttered.
Yep.
Ooh.
Gonna need another screen.
Yeah, 2 monitors is not enough. I can barely keep track of all of this and like stream anything.
You need a third monitor, which is just like a 46-inch TV above your other monitors hanging on the wall, just for character sheets.
Nice.
There were times where I had to run the laptop on the desktop, like literally just on the desk's surface with the 2 monitors.
Oh boy. This doesn't feel like the thing I should be worrying about, but I'm going to worry about it briefly. It is very possible they just have not put all of the information in for their pact, because their pact came out of Heliana's guide, and so it involved a lot of copying and pasting.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it, we made decisions on it, and then I left him to his own devices of like, you're definitely a copy and paste all this, right? Yeah.
Sorry. Just snooping around. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Hey, I don't think there are any terrible secrets, or else I should have hidden them better. Oh my goodness, my cat just chased her tail. It was wonderful.
Stream it.
I'm trying
Stream
really.
it.
I can't. You know, the moment has passed, but I'm trying really hard to be focused. I've got like 30 more minutes of being focused, and then I can laugh at my cat. But dang, that was cute. Okay, so it looks like we start our first encounter, and that feels nice. And we're gonna start with this little bat dude. This was the third of the creations to pop out of the oven. It is excited to be here. It is fluttering around. There are crumbs going everywhere. No, I don't. Cats, go away. This delicious little bat takes its pick and decides that definitely Mira is the most interesting potential person to be chomped on. He flutters right in and attempts to just flutter right out. Wonderful. Mira, you don't even have to do much. I mean, this poor bat was just born out of an oven, and it flies right at you and kind of just blats itself on the wall. It reforms a second later and just kind of looks dazed, right? It didn't instantly die, but what a good start to these culinary creations.
That's what I call cookie dough.
Did it have like a rubber hose effect of like it ran into the wall and then just kind of plopped back?
Yeah, it sort of reformed after a second. It's definitely still maybe a bit dough, and when it reformed, it had to figure out where it was. So that brings us to. I'm gonna get all of everybody's names down pretty quick. Tyrus.
All right, cool. I'm seeing the bunny and the snake as the other options. I'm going to assume the snake is the more of the deadly to the deadly ones, and so I'm going to pull out my great axe and just slash at the snake.
Goodness.
Goodness.
Hey, you rolled better than the bat.
Nice.
That's plenty.
Cool.
And that's also pretty okay damage.
Nice.
You maybe have experienced something like this in the past. You're literally taking a slice out of a pumpkin python.
Oh my god.
That's amazing.
Oh, all of these have wonderful names.
The pumpkin python. I love it.
It's there's a piece missing, but it's still going. And now there's just also a large piece of pumpkin pie on the ground. That brings us to Friar.
Can you advance the turn order?
Probably.
Okay. I'm going to cast a spell. I'm going to cast
I hope
Eldritch
so.
Blast. But I would like it to look holy/celestial as like a skinning of it.
Yeah, of course. Do you have
advantage?
or do you have advantage?
No, I do not.
Okay.
So B6.
Well, Look, there's a really nice looking blast of light. And let's be real, I don't even know what you were targeting, but you rolled a 6, so
It was the bat, but it doesn't matter.
I don't think the bat knows that you were targeting it either. Ranmar barely knows you were targeting it, and that thing probably got closer to him.
That was for the pan.
We will move on before I insult you further. We've got Holden.
I'm going to remark, oh my god, was that holy/celestial? And then I'll shoot at the bat with my crossbow that's directly nearest Mira.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was an appropriate time to roll damage, because you definitely hit that bat square in its chocolate chip face. It's the nice thing about these culinary constructs that, there's an arrow sticking literally out of this bat's head because the head is like half its body, and it just kind of doesn't notice.
Nice. It's still up then?
It is still up.
I'll use 35 of my 40 feet of movement to put Glitch there, and use my bonus action to command him to rend.
Ooh, that is weirdly hard to read in dark mode.
It is.
Yeah.
Ew.
Huh.
22
Well,
to
that's...
hit.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course.
It is only fitting that the first thing to be defeated in this entire campaign is something that can be pleasantly eaten by your robot companion. Because that crossbow bolt was pretty effective, but being mauled by a robotic lion is definitely a good way for that bat to go.
Glitch
And
is
you could crumbs, chips, all just go scattering like Detrius. And, surprisingly, Pelna, not concerned.
nice. No move, I'll stay where I am.
Sounds good. Next. Oh, that was not the emergency I was expecting it to be. Next up is the Hop Tart.
Pop-Tart.
I promise it's mostly just this session, but I'm really happy with this. The research for this session was really fun. The Hop Tart is going to, because it is not a very intelligent creature being made out of dough and jelly filling, is going to bound away.
Does that cause an attack of opportunity?
It sure does.
I'd like to attack it
You
using
probably
this
could-
opportunity.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's brutal. One day I will figure out how to make health bars appear. I think the answer is do this. Hey, I figured it out. I'm doing all sorts
Hey.
of stuff. I definitely also did that for the cookie batter, and just missed one step.
Look at you being a DM. You're doing it.
Yeah.
And you're doing a heckin' of a good job, too.
Heck yeah.
All right. So having had a large chunk of it taken out, the Hop Tart continued its trek forward here, and with as many people around as possible, it leaps up into the air and just shakes sprinkles all over the place.
Oh my god, I love it.
That
Sprinkle shake.
I bet if I had highlighted people, this would have worked a little better. But that's definitely miss on Rayan.
Yeah.
Probably Fryer. He says, hoping that Fryer has at least 12 TN.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, that misses.
Yeah.
By a bit.
Also a miss against Morthos.
Good
And
hit.
I'm at least going to ask what Holden's TN is.
14.
Okay.
That
Wow.
sucked. I'm sorry, bud.
It's fine. This is the warm-up combat where I shake off some rust.
And sprinkles.
And sprinkles.
And sprinkles.
Yeah.
So, honestly, it kind of just looks like a small firework. And this rabbit jumps up, flings definitely a magically summoned amount of sprinkles, way more than were on its body, in an attempt to disorient people. And the lot of you, I don't know, just shield your eyes or look away for a second. and then look afterwards. And honestly, there's like a quarter of a second in combat where even Ranmar just starts laughing.
They were supposed to be death spores.
Rayan, you're up.
Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and hit with my longsword on the hop tart. That was hard to say.
You get used to it.
14 to hit.
Yeah, okay.
8 damage.
Wow. Well, now we all know that was just barely not enough. As I mean, look, there is strawberry filling going everywhere, and this poor rabbit is still standing and doesn't seem to notice. Like, it's not in pain. It's just, I guess, maybe disappointed in itself.
Given the trauma I've seen in war, I'm equal parts horrified and hungry.
If only I had an extra attack to eat the last part of it.
Right? Morthos, we rolled your initiative for you, and it is now.
What am I supposed to do with a 1 hit point Pop Tart?
Hey, you can go fight the
You could eat it.
Pumpkin pie neck.
Oh, is that what that is? That's a pumpkin python?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Python.
See the little pumpkin pie for the head?
Oh my god. All right.
Da-da-da.
Well, he's deciding. Zell, do you want to know what one of the coolest things that you can do and only you can do? If you select any of the tokens and hit Z, you get to see it super huge.
Wait, only he gets to see it super huge?
I feel like this is a trick.
No, it's not.
Is this like the Alt F4
Oh,
trick?
What the heck?
Any token you own, you can zoom in and see the artwork on clearly. So like we'll only be able
Wow.
to do it with our character tokens, but you can do it with anything.
Does that flash that for everybody?
Nope,
No.
it's
Just
just
you.
That's
Well,
neat.
that's silly. I want everybody to look at how good this pumpkin python is,
Me too.
I was trying to appreciate the artwork.
right?
All right.
So cute.
I run up to the pumpkin python, trying not to giggle, and
And
attack,
failing.
yeah, and attack with my spear.
Okay.
Of course, my rolls are fucking terrible.
Oh.
Okay,
Sorry,
mine wasn't
you-
much better.
You'll get him out tonight, and then the next time you'll have really good rolls.
Yeah, we're all just working out the kinks.
I mean, I'm having a great night, but next time I'll be doing terrible.
Mira,
Hey, it's my
the bat that attacked you is now being actively eaten by a robot that can't even eat.
Okay.
X, did you move into melee for the spear?
Yeah, I can't move myself though.
That's what I was checking on.
Yeah, I want to be like right here.
That works. We're gonna have to work out some kinks because right now everybody can move themselves but you. So
Oh, so you
I don't
moved me. Okay, cool.
yeah, probably.
If you guys just don't want me to play, just
No,
tell me.
no, you
Like
weren't.
I can go home.
You weren't here when we were.
Wait, you're not home right
discussing.
now?
If you drag it off of the players menu, if you click on your name under players and drag it onto the game board, you'll be able to interact with that piece. You're basically making a new one. Yeah, then Zell can resize
Yep.
it for you. That's what we all did.
Oh.
That's how we were able to move
Nice.
ours. Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
Okay.
Hey, look, I can do that now.
It is my
All right.
turn. I'm going to cast Vicious Mockery on the Pumpkin Python. and I'm going
Okay.
to yell at it, I've met sharper loaves of bread than you. So it has to succeed on a wisdom saving throw or take 1d4 psychic damage and have
Okay.
disadvantage on its next attack roll. And
Would you
then-
mind leaking the spell so I can see it?
Oh, yeah.
Especially for the first few sessions, I'm definitely need to just see every spell, even though I totally believe you.
Okay, hold on. I have to find it.
I
Says
also
here
have it.
double damage against pumpkin pythons. Amazing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Meg, I also linked it because I have it too.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Because now I can't find it. I don't know where it's at on my thing.
Spells tab
Okay.
upper right hand corner.
Wisdom saving throw.
Oh, Vicious Mockery. I see it under cantrips. Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Oh, bud.
I mean,
My
look,
dude.
she just insulted a piece of pie, and hey, big surprise, the pumpkin pie did not resist the mockery.
Not the pouty puff pastry.
Okay.
In
And then
fact,
as my bonus action, I'm going to do. Okay, so I did my Vicious Mockery. I'm going to do Bardic Inspiration. And I have a little thing for that. Okay, so who is next in our lineup?
It goes the python and then Tyrus.
And then Tyrus. Okay, so I guess I will put Bardic Inspiration on Tyrus since he'll get his next turn. And I'm going to say, so you need a boost a little bit, some inspiration it seems. Well, let this tune inspire you and take it to extremes.
Okay. That is wonderful.
Okay, and here it is if I need to link it. So now
Wonderful.
you'll get to have advantage. Or, right? What?
Okay.
No, how does that work?
No.
You get an extra die.
To attack or
One attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. You
okay.
Okay.
And
So
that's my
yeah,
turn.
it looks like you're gonna get an extra d6.
Nice.
And also, Meg, did you want to roll some damage for that? Looks like d4.
Oh, yes.
You hit the thing, you might as well be the one that hurts it. All right. And I bet I can figure out how to show you that bar. Out of...
Oh, whoops. Huh. Didn't know that you could just drag dice numbers onto the field.
mm-hmm.
Oh, that number is very wrong. It did not have 287 health. There we go.
Whoa.
Okay. There's other monsters for that. The pumpkin python finally gets to act, and now it's confused and sad.
Oh, no.
You just insulted it. You can't feel bad.
That just goes to show you that this pumpkin python is sentient, and you hurt its feelings. I might have hurt it, but you hurt its feelings.
It's going to pick, yeah, probably Morthos, because Morthos is closer, arguably, and is going to attempt to wrap around you in a delicious constriction.
And it has a disadvantage on the
Well,
next
guess
attack
what?
roll it makes until the end of its next
That's
turn.
good, because the first roll sucked, and the second roll would have been amazing. So, entirely because of that confusion, good job, Meg. This thing, like, kind of tries to wrap around your leg, and, you can just kind of, like, bat it off.
Well, I mean, it's missing like its tail, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a decent portion of this pie creature that's missing. So, Ranmar on phase 0 of this, Palna, will you please take this seriously? And at this point, you could see that he's still kind of laughing from the rabbit, and she is giggling viciously. I'm taking it plenty seriously. It's not my fault they know what they're doing. And he says, fine, close the oven. And he starts working on a pretty large soup pot in front of him. But otherwise, nothing happens. So we go to Tyrus.
Cool. I'm just gonna chop at the pie again. Pumpkin
Mhm.
python.
That works for me.
Cool.
You guys' rolls are great.
Nice.
And I do get
Goodness.
an extra. Was it D6 for attack?
For the attack, not for damage.
For the attack roll, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well then, it doesn't matter.
Oh no, it totally matters.
All right,
Are
I'll
you
do
kidding?
it anyways. I have to
This
do
matters so hard
it. Okay,
because
so
now
it's
that
21.
pumpkin. No, that pumpkin python now gets hit extra accurately for the same amount of almost enough damage.
Nice.
Which is to say that once again, Foob, you were almost sufficient.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Wop wop.
Friar.
I could have used my action surge, but I'm not going to. I'm going to save it.
We're
That
gonna
seems
try
fine.
that.
Profile.
We're gonna try that again for the Eldritch Blast. But now I know what I'm
Okay.
targeting, which is the python, the pumpkin python.
Not the hop tart that's right next to you.
No. Oh. I didn't. I thought the hop tart was dead.
No, it has 1 health.
Oh, Is it okay if I kill the Pop Tart? Hop Tart?
Yes,
Instead?
you can absolutely target the hop tart instead. And I'm gonna make you roll damage, even though that hop tart has 1 health left.
Bat Bunny. Why did that should have included my charisma? I need to fix that.
Yeah, we can work on it. What the
Oh.
heck? All sorts of stuff's happening.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry.
That's fine. We can work with that 5. It had 1 health. It didn't matter unless you have negative 5 charisma.
Yep.
I mean, now you hit this thing with a nice blast of light and force, and there's just kind of a small poof, and a bit of strawberry goo goes all over the place. Probably gets on, Rand's boots a little bit.
Hey.
Now you're gonna be sticky.
Ugh. If it wasn't for the sprinkles already.
For what it's worth, a little bit of that goo does get on Rayan and probably Friar enough that you could take that. This tastes good.
Yeah.
Probably could use some cinnamon. We got Holden.
I'm gonna move to here and fire the crossbow at the pumpkin python.
Okay. Bit presumptuous that you're auto-rolling damage, but also with rolls like that, yeah, fine, whatever.
If the auto roll bugs you, I can turn it off.
No, not at all. It's fine. And yes, that is absolutely enough. Hey, you don't have to roll damage now, and the python had 1 health. So,
Nice.
So as you spear that pie and it returns to its inanimate pie-like state, Ranmar says, "See, Pelna, that was practically an appetizer." She says, "Exactly, that was the point." He says, "Yes, but you can't start the meal with desserts. You served them tarts, cookies, and pies. That's not an appetizer." She says, "Well, what do you have in mind?" He says, "Literally the opposite of that."
Are we moving to the soup course?
He pulls out a pretty large ladle from this giant soup pot that he's working on. Yes. 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 Wonderful. Pelna, serve what you have, while I introduce to them the Carnosaur. And we're going to temporarily pause and end combat as he prepares his dish, and we hit 9 o'clock.
Fair enough.
Perfect timing.
Huzzah!
Nice.
Oh, we made it.
Oh my god, pumpkin python and hop tart.
What was the bat called?
Yeah, what was the bat called?
It was cookie
Cake batter.
cookie batter.
Yep.
Cookie batter. Love it.
Oh my
We
fucking
didn't get
god.
to see too much of the cookie batter, but that's okay.
Zell, this is awesome.
This was amazing.
I promised that this would be a little more serious than this combat ended up being, but also this combat is an introductory one and was fun and a good introduction to Palma. So using food puns and stuff was enjoyable.
I
Oh my
loved it.
gosh,
It was
this
great.
is amazing.
So expect things to get a little more serious eventually, but right now we're having fun.